Good morning, everyone. My name is Gina Leonard. I am the principal at Shaw Middle School, and super excited to see you guys all out on a Saturday because it was a little rough for me to get out of bed this morning, too, so I completely understand that. I have with me Amy Heibarger, who is my librarian, amazing librarian that we have in our building. You probably recognize her way more than you recognize me because she is always presenting to all sorts of classes and everybody, so you may have had her at some point during the school year. So we were asked to present about Fundamental 1, and we presented yesterday to the principals, which was absolutely amazing. But we had a conversation kind of from the top down, and today we want to have a conversation kind of from the ground floor up. So we hope that you walk away from today with something interesting, something you can use. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so we have some fun things on your tables to do. We hope that you kind of get in and play with some of this stuff today. It does tend to get a little bit messy when we're trying new stuff, and we acknowledge that, which was basically our point yesterday to the principals. At Shaw Middle School, I've had the beautiful opportunity of being there since we opened. And when we talk about Fundamental 1, for us that is core instruction. So what is every kid going to learn in our classrooms? Well, we've had years of working on this. And we never, ever are finished working on that piece. We are always trying to decide, you know, what is it that these kids need to learn? At what level do they need to learn it? So what's the rigor of it? And then how are we sure that they're getting it? So that is where we have tended to focus for the last couple years at Shaw Middle School is question number 2 when we look at our fundamentals. What are kids expected to learn? We have lots of things. Pacing guides, Nevada content standards, and GSS standards. We have all these amazing documents to figure out what we're supposed to teach. But where we got stuck was, how do we know that they're learning it? And we as teachers know that that piece is hard. We tend to get in our departments and our grade levels and we talk about content, but then we go back to our classroom and we teach it. And that is a very isolating place that we want to break down that isolation and bring back that collaboration. So how are we going to learn it is a big deal. So what we did is we looked at it as a leadership team and as a department leads, and we said, okay, so what do we do here? How do we make sure kids are getting what we want them to get? So then we started looking at our resources. And if you look at our cute little picture up here, it doesn't matter what resources you have if you don't use them correctly. And that meant, as a leader in a building, that meant leveraging the right resources. For you guys, that means becoming that resource. Stepping out of that comfort zone and being able to and willing to share with your colleagues, because collaboration is the only way this education world works. We have to work together, because otherwise it's just way too big of a job. So I, of course, went to my fabulous resource in my librarian, which if you're not using the librarian in your building, then you're doing something wrong, because they are the best resource you have to find you things to do, time to help you with it. Amy is an example that is contagious in our building. So my department leads now take on a lot of those positions, but leveraging your resources and becoming a resource is the ultimate job there.
All right, so when you look at the fundamentals, you look at SLOs, you look at your teacher evaluation, you look at the 21st century guide and competencies, you look at your pacing guides, it feels really overwhelming to have all of these different things. And as a teacher, we do not like one more thing. And so I set out to find the common theme of all of those documents, and really if I had to say it came down to one word, it comes down to thinking. We want students to think engaged in their thinking, and we need to be able to see their thinking. And so I found this resource a couple of years ago, this book called Making Thinking Visible. It is a great guide. It came out of professors out of Harvard going around the world looking at the best practices in classrooms and observing and really seeing what was working. And they developed these thinking routines from that process. And you don't have to buy the book, But if you type in Making Thinking Visible on the internet, there's a great extensive website. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You can just kind of get the gist of it and pick out the different routines that will work for you in the setting that you're in. And so I want to show you one routine just so you can kind of see how this could really work in whatever teaching position or classroom setting that you are in. So this one is particularly called the headline routine, and all it is doing is capturing the essence of something. And it's a two-step process. We're going to do the first step process right now. Everybody should have a giant foot in front of them. And on the foot there is a question. If you were to write a headline for fundamental number 1 that captured the most important aspect that should be remembered, what would that headline be? You are not being graded on this. You are not being judged on this. I just think it's important to think, what is the essence of fundamental 1 for you? So write it nice and big and proud on your foot. And take a minute to really think about it.
If you're struggling with how to look at this headline, think of it in terms of if you had a student do this. What would they write as a headline? What would they want to see on the front of the newspaper kind of thing? About Fundamental 1, about core instruction.
So go ahead and do it.
It's okay, really, you can talk. Social, it's all good.
Wake up.
Come on.
Okay, so as we go through the next couple of minutes together, I have started a hashtag WCSD, Learning is Visible, and I would love it if you are on Twitter, if you would use that hashtag. It's actually on the back of your foot. But beyond today, it's also nice to capture the learning that you see every day. We have a lot of data, and I think it's important to realize that kids are more than numbers, and seeing good things that are happening in our district is really powerful. So, you know, capture you and your PLC group working together. Capture you and your whole staff working together. Capture students doing great things. Because I think sometimes you could feel defeated and think, oh, are they getting this? And being able to look at some great things that are happening is really powerful. So if you are not on Twitter, it is a really cool resource and a tool that you could maybe check out. And if you are, I'm going to take pictures as we go through, but start hashtagging WCSD Learning is Visible. We have a simple choice. We can do nothing and live in denial that the world around us is changing as we become obsolete, or we can reimagine, reinvent, relearn, and continue to do what we all want most in our hearts, change the lives of children for the better. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm super passionate about my students, but I also have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old that will be coming through these school systems. And it is crucial and important that we are constantly relearning, okay? As we move forward, we need to be re-imaging and relearning ourselves. So this idea came from the idea of we have to relearn. We can't sit in our department meetings, our PLC meetings, and just do nuts and bolts. We have to try new things because we all know that time is not our friend. We do not have a lot of time to go outside of, you know, the day and research and what's happening and what could I do better. So Gina has given us at our school the opportunity to, in our meetings, try things and get different resources and play with them. And so I do a lot of PLCs just doing that, giving teachers and our staff resources that they can use. And I'm hoping today that you walk away with at least one thing that you can use.
So the idea behind professional development is kind of a give and get kind of thing. I get to stand up here and tell you all the fabulous things, and you're going to be a teacher out there, and you're going to go absorb it all, go back to your classroom and use it, which doesn't happen. We don't have time for that as teachers. It just doesn't happen. We nod, and we play our part, and we go back to our room, and we do it like we've always done it. So we, at my school, had to make a very conscientious decision to flip that. It can't be about giving and getting because we never have time to play. You have to get in and play with something as a teacher before you're going to be comfortable enough to go back to your classroom and try it out. You have to be able to bounce the idea off of your colleague, discuss it. Oh, I'm not sure, that sounds messy in my classroom. Learning is absolutely messy. So when I talk about, yesterday to the principals, you got to change how we're doing this piece. When I talk to you guys, you got to be those people willing to jump up and say, I tried this in my classroom. This is what it looked like. Can we have some time to play with it? One of the jobs that Amy helps me out with is that she brings these resources to the staff. And we talk a lot about what the resources are and then give them or make them use them right then and there to see how they would use them out in their classroom. It's that piece that they got to get in and get messy with so that they can see if it really works for them.
So our most recent PLC, we looked at tools for evaluating students. And so I showed them the headline routine, which we just did, and then I showed them Recap, Flipgrid, and Seesaw. So raise your hand if you have used either Recap, Flipgrid, or Seesaw. Awesome, one. So these are super amazing tools. And I can tell you that my October break, I spent a great deal of time trying to find, new things to introduce to my staff, and probably of the 50 accounts I signed up for and tried, I came up with like one new tool. And so these ones are tested and tried and really amazing. I do not work for any of these companies, but I wish I did because I've tried to get so many people to use them. I need some kickbacks, So let me just give you a little insight into each of these. Recap is a great tool for posing a question or a scenario and getting kids, and you could use it with your colleagues as well. We use it with our colleagues, but for your purpose, getting kids to give you a video, a verbal evaluation of something. And it's really simple to do. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't have technology, I don't have access to a lot of technology. And there's ways around that, utilizing the students that have their own devices, utilizing your library, using stations where you only need one laptop or one iPad. There's lots of solutions, and I am more than willing to give you lots of ideas, and so don't hesitate to email me after this. But Recap is awesome, right? Then there's Flipgrid, and Flipgrid is super nice because it integrates with a lot of the systems that we already have in place, like Microsoft and Google Classroom, but that's kind of along the same lines of having kids verbally tell you things. And some of you are probably thinking, well, why would I want them to verbally tell me something? Because we have to start practicing the art of communication. Communication is one of those things that is lacking, and we need kids to start not only communicating well, but being confident in the videos and in their discussions they have with each other. And when it's digital, it's nice because then you can reuse it and share it and utilize it with different classes and different people in your building. It's more than just a piece of paper that doesn't really travel anywhere. And then the last one is Seesaw, which I love Seesaw. I should have gotten t-shirts made for us. But what I love most about that is you can have my 4-year-old, I make him make Seesaw videos, all the way up to high school. It is a very easy tool to use. You can have the kids draw something and annotate on it verbally or with writing. You can have them take a picture of their work and verbally annotate on that and explain what it is of. You can have them make videos, and the video part is really essential for me because I fought with YouTube for years trying to make it a safe place for kids to create, and it was too much. So I even use, like for when I do presentations and post stuff around our building, I make my own videos in Seesaw to show the kids because it's so easy and convenient. And what I love about all 3 of these tools is that when you guys play in a minute, all of them will create the QR code for you so that other people around your building, your administrators, can see the work that you're doing really easily. And that's the part that I really love, because our work for our kids shouldn't just be for the teacher. It should start to be a real-world audience. It should go beyond. And when it goes beyond, like my kids that made these samples, the fact that they knew some went to the superintendent, some went to administrators, some got to principals, they were excited for you, they buy in more and they really get vested in it. So again, I'm not selling these products to you, they're all free. You already own them. I bought them for you, they're free. On this slideshow, which you will have access to, we have every single department talking about which tool was their favorite. So if you are, let's say, a math teacher in the audience, when we give you time to play, you may want to look at the math person's perspective of which tool, because I taught them in depth what these tools can do. But if you are a person in English and you want to see how it could be used in an English classroom, you would click on that link as well. Okay. So I want you to play. On your table, you have 3 sets of cards. The first set is all student samples. These are things that our kids in our building have made in different collaborative lessons in different content areas. The second is a set of books, professional books. If you're interested in growing in certain areas, they're all book talked. I made those book talks in probably less than a minute using Seesaw, just so you know. And then the third set are those teacher interviews that I just talked about, where teachers in all the different content areas are talking about what they liked about these tools. So if you are not familiar, just so that we're all on the same page, a QR reader is an app that you can get out of your app store, and it's free. If you have Snapchat, Snapchat is also a QR reader, so you don't need to add an app if you have Snapchat. If you don't want to add anything, don't hesitate to just work with a partner at your table. And if you just want to work with a partner, that's cool too. But really look at these things, because I want you to see the possibilities and think, in my setting, in what I'm doing right now for Washoe County School District, how can I use one of these tools, and have that discussion at your table.
And you don't have to stick to an academic type thing. We have a QR code of teaching a kid how to open a locker. You know, so there's a little video of you twist to the right, then you twist to the left. Because otherwise we say it 4,000 times in the month of August. Well, if there's a QR code right on the wall, and you know your kids are going to want to use their phone anyways to do it, and they can watch the video over and over again. So think about things even in your office that you could, you know, that same thing that you do over and over and over again, or the same stuff that you send out in an email. You can do it in a nice little video. Sometimes it's fun, instead of reading an email, to watch a little video to get the same information. So if you're not in an academic classroom setting, that's okay. See which ways you could use these tools. When you get done in the next few minutes, after you get to go through them, the idea behind it is, where could you use it? What could you do with it?
We'll be coming around. If you have questions, don't hesitate to shoot your hand up.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, doesn't matter. Ask anything.
Okay, so if we could just bring your attention back. I love the enthusiasm that you guys have. I'm super excited because I think some of you are like, ooh, this is exciting, and that makes me excited because I know how cool these things can be, and so I'm excited that some of you are like, wow, I could use this in this way and that way, and that's really what it's all about. So now if you think about the second part of the headline routine, you should go back and think, how does my headline differ from what I originally thought? Now, granted, we've talked for 15 minutes, so I don't think it's differed all that much. But if you think about yourself and what you thought a Fundamental 1 last year to now, you could see how this routine could really stimulate some really good discussions among your students. And again, this was a super easy thing to do, and that book has lots of other routines that you could use in your classrooms.
So as adults, we know how scary sometimes technology can be. For our kids, it is also a little nerve-wracking. And then when you're a teacher in a classroom and you're going to turn 30, 35 kids loose on some kind of app like Seesaw, we know that gets very nerve-wracking. So we have to keep moving forward, right? Technology is part of our world. Our kids are growing up into a world where their job skills are very, very different from ours. Their collaboration skills, their communication skills are so important. We have to acknowledge those things. So we as teachers and leaders have to continue to reimagine and reinvent ourselves, and it gets messy. And so, basically what we want you to take away from this is to get in and play and to get messy with it and to try it out with your kids. It's not going to be perfect the first time. It's not going to be, when you make your first video, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking, or when your kids make their first video. But the perseverance is what we want to keep going with. We know we had to, follow the little kids, and they were so stinking cute, and we wanted to bring puppies in and have you guys play with puppies because it was really early on a Saturday morning. But the best we got right now is ending with fireworks. So this is the bottom line is our message to you.
Okay, that should do it.
So exciting. Let her rip, Lewis.
Quickly, Uncle Joe can't hold on much longer.
Everybody ready?
Go, Carl.
Get away.
Oh, no. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You failed!
And it was awesome. Exceptional.
Outstanding. I see better. From failing, you learn. From success, not so much.
If I gave up every time I failed, I never would have made the meatball cannon.
I never would have made my fireproof pants. Still working out the kinks.
Like my husband always says. I propose a toast to Lewis and his brilliant failure. May it lead to success in the future.
It's the feet, folks. Come on, right? Don't forget that the whole presentation is on the back side of that foot, and don't forget the hashtag for Twitter. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's hear it for our Shaw Coyotes. Oh, hang on, ladies. We have a little Q&A. Yep. I know that we have some questions in the audience. All right, here we go.
You gave us a lot to, kind of search out and decide what we like best. But you did mention that you like the seesaw, and then Gina mentioned, letting 35 kids loose on that. What do you do? So my question is, when you let them loose on that, how do they save that stuff, and where do they save it to? Do they save it to their OneDrive so that it is up on a district function up there somewhere?
So Seesaw is an app, or you can also use it on a laptop. It is a digital tool. So everything that is like what you saw at the table when you scanned those links, it is in the world of the internet. So yet you can't access that unless I allow you to access that. I gave you permission by printing that code for you to look at. So you don't have to save it anywhere. You make that video right there and then, and it's done, which is amazing because I like Office, but the saving and the logging in and all of that is very time consuming. And so it kind of takes away from, being able to just create. This is super simple in that regard.
Okay, so, and I think that's the reason I asked the question. So I'm from the counseling department.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we got recently was a report from internal audit that was looking at what the kids are saving up onto their OneDrives. And really the reason we got the report is because of the things that, and I'll use our middle school students as our example, that they are terrifying us with some of the statements that they are saving up into their OneDrive. It's a district tool, and we want the district to be able to audit that so that we can look for kids that are having trouble. And using these tools you just gave us with the students in the classroom would be awesome, because they're going to share their hearts, and that's what we want, even though part of what we want is to be able to focus on getting them help when we find that they're in need of help. And that's, like you said, the district tools are great, and yet, I'm kind of thinking we ought to be using them with these tools in our classroom so that we can kind of see where we need to focus some help.
Well, and what I love about Seesaw is I, as the teacher, approve anything. So nobody can move forward until I approve it. And so, like, we had a student for an SEL project, they had to do a museum of me, and they made this thing, and then they spoke about how they felt about the process and all of what was, happening in it. And so then I, as the teacher, approved the messages. And there were certain students that, like, I want to make it, but I don't want you to share it. And so it didn't get shared. And then there were some students that are like, can you print the QR code so I could bring it home to my family? Or can you print the QR code and give it to Miss Leonard? So that's what I do like, especially about Seesaw, about the fact that I control I'm a control freak. So that I control everything. And I put out what you see and what you don't see. Did that answer your question? Okay, good. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much again to Shaw Middle School and to Amy and Gina.